States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The United States military, comprised of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. The pledge to protect your fellow man and the Constitution of the United States of America. We see the storyline about the heroic military veteran all over the place. It's badass. It's American. It's heroic. But what is the reality for these brave men and women who enlist and serve? What are the psychological components involved?
The movies have some pretty good validity and some certain accuracies. There's the glamour, but there's also the reality.
You do get psychologically abused in there, but you don't know it before you go in. I knew a few guys in there. One guy threatened to jump over the side of the ship and commit suicide.
Going through the military and everything to a fault being pointed out in my life that nobody had ever done to me before, it was realizing then, I'm not worth anything to anybody. I'm better off dead.
The experiences are worth having the PTSD.
My name is Justin Murray.
My name's Michael Ragel.
I was in the Air Force for 2 years.
I was in the Navy from 1981 to 1988.
My job was to guard essential resources to the infrastructure as well as to national security.
I was a third-class petty officer. I was an aviation structures mechanic attached to aircraft carriers and then onto fighter squadrons. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I was also a kind of a beach bum. I had a surfboard and I hung out at the beach. I was a high school graduate with a job as a truck driver, and I just loved the ocean. And I had an uncle that was in the Navy in World War II. I kept seeing commercials on TV, join the Navy.
To break free.
It's not just a job, it's an adventure.
Live the adventure. Call 1-800-327-NAVY.
So I went in and I talked to the Navy recruiter, and within 3 weeks I was in boot camp in San Diego, and I swore in for 4 straight years, and I was 20 years old.
To understand the psychology behind why someone would join the military, we must first understand the evolutionary need of human beings to be part of a group. Unlike other species, humans received most of what they need from their social group rather than directly from his or her natural environment. I mean, look around you. Most of what you see and depend on for your survival has been invented by another group of human beings. Abraham Maslow suggested that the need to belong was a major source of human motivation. It is one of the 5 human needs in his hierarchy of needs, along with psychological needs, safety, self-esteem, and self-actualization.
The goal of a recruiter is to get you in because there's an incentive there for them. I want you to join because it'd be good for you, and they give you that as a young man or as a young woman, you're looking for that pickup, that especially Marines. A lot of them come from really tough situations, and they're wanting to find ways to do better. They want to be able to be a part of something bigger. That's the purpose of a Marine, is to be a team, to be a family, and to be something bigger. And in the military as a whole, that's what they want to give you, is that feeling. But there's much more to it than that. It's not just a feeling, it's a work into kind of feeling.
We know the military to be a major group in the United States, one that offers a collection of like-minded individuals who have chosen to give up their independent identity for the purpose of conforming to the group. The need to belong to a group is human nature, and if one can't find it in civilian life, the military is perfectly packaged to serve those needs.
My recruiter picked me up at 4 o'clock in the morning at my mom and dad's house, and I kissed my mom goodbye. That's me when I graduated from boot camp. That's me before I went into boot camp.
So in boot camp, the process is, and this is every branch, the purpose is to break you down. Take a computer, for example. You have your main tower, and you have all these, your RAM stick, and you have your processing chip and all this. Well, their goal is to take all those parts out, which is you as the person, the computer being you as the person, take all those parts out, and then they put in the parts they want you to have. For example, Marines, they are trained to survive anything and everything. So they're going to put in there, the toughness, the bearing in a tough situation, being able to kill with your bare hands.
Oh, you look at me right now.
The boot camp process is a 3-month-long degradation ceremony. A ceremony that transforms or is intended to transform the identity or status of an individual into an identity or status lower down in the hierarchy of a group or institution. In layman's terms, it's a psychological process that strips a person of their individual identity in order to build a new one. Having one's head shaved, which takes place in most prisons as well as in the military, is designed to minimize each person's individuality. Same goes for uniforms that are all the same.
So your hair's all cut and they tell you to stand at attention, just with your underwear on and your bare feet, and you go in front of a guy shoots you in this arm with an air gun. So you get all these shots and your arms starting to swell up and you feel weird because you're being inoculated.
What does that mean?
You're getting shots for typhoid, all different diseases because you're going to be sent all over the world.
When you get off the bus, they're already yelling at you. You could be like, let's say I'm 6'2", which I'm not, but if I'm 6'2", I could have a little guy who's like 4'7" yelling at me like he's taller than me. And I can't sit there and be like, I can't just sit there and tell him you need to shut up.
Where's the ID? Where is your ID? I didn't tell you to put it in there! So take it out! Yes, sir!
They could yell anything they wanted. It could be anything from you're a piece of crap and you're not going to make it in life, to you failed, to you're going to starve to death.
They wake you up at 4:30 in the morning with a trash can lid. They're banging it, yelling at you, get up. They call you names. Get up, dirtbags. You got 2 minutes to make your bed and be downstairs ready to run 3 miles.
You would be put through these different training scenarios, like flying across or holding onto a rope and going across water, and you're getting yelled at this whole time. So you're having to go through this training. You're exhausted, you're tired, you're hungry, you're thirsty. I mean, you're trying to survive. So if you make a mistake, I have to pay for it with you. It's not one of those, you make a mistake, you live up to it. The goal is that we take care of one another. You could do push-ups for hours. You could run for hours because you didn't take care of your wingman.
Your face because you need to make your attitude less visible. Check it out. There are a few things we will tell you to do while you are here. All of them require simple yes or no's. All of them require you to move with a purpose. And if
You do get psychologically abused in there, but you don't know it before you go in. While you're in there, you're being psychologically terrorized.
That's the goal of the boot camp, and the whole goal of the military is to get psychologically into your head to where you do what you're told without question.
Eventually, they train you so much every day that by the end of those 3 months, you're so focused on what they're trying to tell you. They break you down from you're not a civilian no more.
Yeah.
You're a member of the United States Armed Forces.
When you were in the Air Forces, you were sexually assaulted.
Correct.
What exactly happened?
So when I first got to Aviano Air Base, Italy, I wasn't going to be starting work until the following Monday. I'm going to go out and party. And I already met some people, so I'm thought people I could trust. In my own job, I'll add, not just random people, but people within my squadron that I thought I could trust. And he ended up disappearing. And by this point, I had a lot to drink, a lot more than second most I've ever had in my life. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. And I couldn't find my buddy, so I'm like, And so I'm walking around still drunk. It's like 3 a.m. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this male was like, hi. And so I was like, hey man, can I get a ride back to Flightline? Because I'm a little messed up and I need to get to my room. And so he takes me back to the base. Comes to find out he's another airman in the medical field.
Okay.
And he let me stay at his place. Well, at one point, while I was, going through the emotions of drinking too much, he tries to give me medicine. I don't know what it was though. And he refused to tell me. All I know is after that, I woke up and his arms were around me and we both had our clothes off. And I don't remember any of that. The only thing I remember is waking up like that. So I went to people that I thought I could trust in my own squadron. I said, this is what happened. Can somebody please help? Through that process, they initiated the investigation. And investigations can take forever, or they can take no time at all. But in this case, it takes a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And in that time, they put me with this tech sergeant. He said, look, I fucked up real bad, and I'm going to fuck your life up because I fucked up. Only because he lost his NCO stripe the same day he got it to a DUI. So his vendetta was because he screwed up, and now he wants to screw up somebody else.
When I first moved in here, they brought me in here and they said, this is your place. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, great, because I just came off of the streets out of a homeless situation. I wasn't making any money. I was on general relief and food stamps. I was unable to get a job. So I kept going to the VA hospital asking for their help, and they hooked me up and gave me a place to stay, and then eventually got me in here. Came with this table and that table and those 2 chairs. And I had to get the TVs and the computer. We have free Wi-Fi here. So normally I'm much cleaner than this, but I cook my own food. Well, I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and so I was focusing too much on the past, reliving things over and over and over again. You start profusely sweating or having the chills, fight or flight. You want to run, you want to get away from wherever you are during that time. People, places, or things can trigger you to make you feel very uneasy. A lot of this stuff is, like I've had this map. That's the first thing I put up on the wall. This is the bathroom. I have a tub, I have a shower and everything. This is the walk-in closet with all my clothes and everything. It's completely packed. And this is my Navy uniform.
What kinds of moments and memories were you focusing on during that time?
Things that I saw that happened during the military. I was working on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier and seen a lot of bad crashes happen. A lot of guys get blowed over the side of the ship into the water, never found again.
God.
I was using alcohol, beer, and pot to cover it up as a Band-Aid solution. So you get hear that guy yelling?
Who is that?
Just one of the neighbors that starts yelling all the time. But we have to put up with things around here.
Who's he yelling at?
He could be yelling at the wall.
I'm getting yelled at for every little thing that I do. Everything. His coffee was wrong. This tastes like shit. I don't like this coffee. You suck. And I went to the person who you're supposed to trust as an enlisted in your squadron that's supposed to help you, the first sergeant. He wouldn't help me.
To better understand how the emotional abuse affects those in the military, let's get into a popular trend today: positive affirmations.
You is smart, you is kind, you is important.
In a brain imaging study published in Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience, it was found that participants who practiced positive affirmations experienced greater activation in parts of the brain that are known to be involved in expecting and receiving reward: the ventral striatum and the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. They measured how a group of overweight participants reacted to health messages like, people who sit are at higher risk for certain diseases. The group that was practicing self-affirmations responded better to the health messages, becoming more active in the month following the study, while the group that did not practice self-affirmations took the health messages as a threat, making them feel bad about themselves. This is huge when you think about experiencing the total opposite. If hearing affirmations makes you more resilient, what does hearing the total opposite on a daily basis do?
The guy that yelled at me all the time, if he was to see this, I'd tell him, like, look, man, you made it your mission to ruin my life, and you succeeded. And the least you could do is...
Why do you say he succeeded?
Whenever I sleep at night, sometimes whenever my career is at a slow point, I start hearing his voice saying, dude, you're a failure. You fucked up. You're not going to make it. Basically, this guy was trying to push me to the point that they could change my discharge because they knew it was going to be honorable.
How does dishonorable hurt you, like technically?
Depending on what the cause is, it can affect you into your civilian life trying to get jobs. And so whenever the investigation was going on, finally they cleared it, and it was the processing and the paperwork to go through the discharge. And so I'm reading these statements from these other people I thought I could trust. One of them went as far as saying, well, you know, Airman Murray is a really nice guy, but we think he's gay. We don't know. We think he's gay. And that did not help my case. At the time that I was in, the whole don't ask, don't tell policy was a big deal. I'm not gay, I'm bisexual. There's a huge difference. And I'm very selective with it. But I'd never told anybody about that. There was some people I found out that were definitely playing into the system in the sense of somebody had talked to them and they were just further accelerating things for me. Everybody in my investigation, every single person, civilians, every single person involved had suddenly upped and left that base shortly after I did. And nobody knows where they went. I just wish that somebody would have stood up for me, is all I ever wanted.
My psychologist is, we sit down on a one-on-one and talk about issues. My medical doctor takes my blood and diagnoses anything for any illnesses or if I need to be put on medications. They put me on a few medications, and a couple of them didn't work. They had bad side effects. Right now, the only thing I'm on is a blood pressure medication, and I'm on another medication called Suboxone.
What is that for?
That is an opioid medication. It's I had a problem with opioids at one time during my life.
What are the side effects of the medications?
The Suboxone, your speech gets a little slower.
When I went to the VA years ago when I was living in Oklahoma City, I said, look, I need some help. Depression's kicking my ass. What do I do? And they said, oh, well, here, take these antidepressants. But I said, well, what's the side effects? Oh, suicidal thoughts or tendencies. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm trying to get away from that. I need help. I need psychological help, not a stimulant that's going to cause me to jump over the ship. I hardly sleep because I'm afraid. The biggest fear that I developed from being in the military because of the psychology was the fear of dying alone, because I don't have a wife and kids.
Remember how Maslow talked about the importance of the need to belong? This ties in with social identity theory. Social identity theory says that an individual's self-knowledge is made of both personal identity, like intrinsic characteristics such as personality traits, and also social identity, the sense of identifying with whichever group the individual belongs. The groups we identify with give us a sense of belonging to the social world and provide us with a sense of who we are. Whenever
confrontations happen, I shut down. Because I've been with people who don't understand the proper way to confront somebody. I also know my training, and I don't want to I've been pushed really hard by people in the civilian world who have purposely pushed my buttons to see how far they can push me. I just don't want that part of me to come out. So whenever I'm in a relationship and it becomes so much at once, like I'm like, I feel isolated. I'm like in a corner, like, don't let the dog come off the chain.
I never got married, but I've had a few girlfriends in my life that could never understand anything I was trying to tell them unless I showed them the pictures. Right now I'm dating a girl that was in the Army.
For those enlisting in the military, the boot camp and degradation ceremony is foundational to instituting a social identity with no individualism. Groups who collectively experience pain, turmoil, catastrophe, or significant life events form stronger social bonds and become more cohesive than groups that do not. So, an unusually strong sense of social identity is formed for those in the military, one that the average civilian cannot understand or even begin to imagine.
I would never do the military. In hindsight, I would have never done it because of what happened. On the other aspect of it, if anything, it did give me some willpower to be able to, because like, you know, being in the career that I have now in a little bit over 2 years, I've been homeless. I still kind of am. If anything, probably the best gain, despite the situation, is now I have an understanding of other people's lives.
I saw a lot of movies on TV, but they glorify things.
Yeah.
But when you're there, actually in the situation, and you see people dying or people getting hurt real bad, It can affect you in somewhat in some bad ways. That's the one thing about the military. You don't know what's going to happen when you get in. The Navy changed my life for the best.
Right.
Because it broadened my horizons. I got to see other cultures of the world.
I have to be honest, that's kind of crazy to me, because you even said like the PTSD that you're suffering was attributed to your time in the Navy. So what happens when the individual who has chosen to become part of a collective social identity leaves the group? The individual's identity is lost. New groups must be found in order for the transition to be made easier.